Hi everyone, my name is Kelly and welcome to my channel called Be You. So this video is all about going with the flow and the results of just going with the flow. So perfect example is I don't know how many of you guys know Robert Place, but basically he is not only does he design tarot decks and cards, but he also writes books um, about the history of tarot. And I just recently got in to him, I would say probably about a month ago, because I was basically giving these breadcrumbs. That's what I call it. So your guides and angels and everybody will give you these breadcrumbs to see if you're going to follow them. And it's okay if you don't follow them. They normally come back again in your mind. So sometimes you might even think that, okay, this is clearly just, in my mind. Why does this keep coming up? So back to Robert Place. I actually found him through, he's got a deck out called the Vampire Tarot deck. Now, I saw this deck at Half Price Books many, many years ago, but I did not purchase it. I picked it up. I was very drawn to it, and I am into vampires, but for some reason, my belief back then was that that was a dark deck and that could only bring in um, not good things. So I no longer believe that, but back at that time, that's where my belief pattern was. So I put it back on the shelf, and then I just walked out. I probably bought something, and then I didn't think much of anything really of it. And then I would say probably about a few months ago, maybe a month and a half, 2 months, that deck just kept coming up. And like in my mind, I would just do random things, and just that vampire deck kept coming up. Well, I did go to Half Price Books, a different location, and they had just the book to it, and they wanted $40. And I, for some reason, I have a strong belief of like, why would you just buy a book and not the deck as well? Like, why would you just sell a book? So I didn't buy the book there. I put it down. And as I put it down, the associate actually went and picked it up and then took it. So I was like, huh, that's interesting. And then as I was looking in the metaphysics area, he brought it back with a $3.99 tag on it. Again, I picked it up, but I'm like, nah, I'm like, I want the cards. I want the tarot deck to go with this. So I put it back down. And then I went ahead and I left. So I did actually happen to go back there, and it was there one last time. And I went right to it, like my eyes were drawn right to it, and I'm like, yeah, like nope, I can't do it. So I put it back down. And then I would say probably, like I said, month and a half, maybe even less. I just that deck came right back to my mind, and I'm like, okay, what is this? So I started researching the deck. To come to find out, this deck is like $500 on Amazon. It's about $300 on eBay, and the cheapest I saw it was about $300, 280. And I'm like, well, I've never purchased a deck for that much, but I'm like, okay, maybe it's who wrote it. So therefore, I followed my breadcrumb, and it led me to Robert Place. And then he has his whole website, I do believe, called robertplace.com. And there I found so many tarot decks about alchemy, which I'm into alchemy, and I've always wanted to find decks that were associated with alchemy. But then I started realizing, and I listened to some of his videos, that he's not only creating tarot decks, he's literally giving you all the history. So, and he writes his stuff so well. Um, so I, kept reading his webpage, but yet his webpage doesn't even talk about the vampire deck at all. So then I reached out to him. I got on his newsletter and I said, okay, Robert, how about I'm looking into your vampire deck. I can't seem to find it anywhere. Um, can you help me out? And he never responded to it. So, and that happened. So I'm like, okay. So, um, I did go ahead and Half Price Books. I went there again just to see if I could find some of his books. And I swear there was a book by him there without me realizing who he was. So I went back to actually I went to all locations because I was looking for the vampire book because found out that that is a rare thing, but it was gone. So someone bought it and probably maybe knew or maybe not. They just felt drawn to it, so they got it. So I went ahead and I purchased. I had to go ask the guy. Okay, the guy who works at Half Price Books. I said, you know, I'm looking for Robert Place. And he said, is he metaphysics? And I'm like, yeah. So he researched him in the computer. He said, actually, there's one in Indiana. I can get it shipped for you for $2.99. And this was the one. Okay. So it, like I said, as you start reading, he puts everything so well together. It's a lot of history, but it's the history of tarot. And what's really interesting is he's actually in a museum in Italy, and they look at tarot not as something like um, that you can predict the future or do readings on, but it's more like work of art. So this museum in Italy that I so badly want to go see, it has the sheets of the tarot deck that come out of the printer before it's cut. So that's how they look at it as its art. And I've always looked at that's why I have so many different decks, especially oracle cards, because it's truly an artist. It's the art of this person who creates these decks. And that's why I'm drawn to so many different ones. So I got this there. So I was really happy to find one of his books at Half Price Books. It came about a week to get it. So then I came home and I started researching, you know, more on his website. And then he actually sells his decks on his website, but not the vampire one. It's nowhere to be found. So then I went ahead and he had a really good deal. This is another one of his books, and it is huge. I did not realize it was this big, but it is a pretty big book because he had a combo. And let me just grab them real quick for you. Hold on. So he had a combo. Basically, he had this one, the Alchemy Tarot, and then he had the Sevenfold Mystery. And what he did was he a compliment and he put all three of these together because this book is what he calls the guide to his tarot decks. So I went ahead and I purchased it, the whole set. Um, and I got it home and I looked at them, of course, like I always do. And it's really nice to know like that he sells them and just how they're created is pretty interesting. But yeah, he puts a lot of time into his artwork. And this one's got golden edges, if you guys can see that. So going back to going with the flow. So I went ahead and I purchased that. And then I felt pretty good. It came, he ships really fast for anyone who needs to know that. And it came and I was pretty happy with it. I was like, okay, maybe I just needed Robert's Place items. I was like, maybe it wasn't about the vampire deck at all. Maybe it was just all about buying his cards and starting to play with them and reading the book and getting more understanding of where the history and everything comes from. So then, literally 2 days ago, the vampire deck came back in my mind. I was literally sitting here at my desk and I'm like, what? I'm like, why is this coming back up? This doesn't make any sense at all. I'm like, okay. So, but I went ahead and I went with it, right? So I went with the flow because I'm like, well, someone keeps bringing that back to my mind. So I went researching yet again. And of course, I started Amazon. It was still $500 and then some. And then I went to eBay and still a couple $100. So I'm like, okay, like I don't understand this. I'm like, okay. But I didn't get frustrated. I was just like, I'm supposed to learn something here. So then what I did was, I can't even tell you what I did, to be honest. All I know is somehow I got led to this lady that was on eBay, but she wanted $100 for it. And I was like, what? And I clicked on it because I was like, no way. I'm like, must be the book or something. So then I read, and it's the book and it's the cards. It's all together. And she wanted $100. Buy it now. And so I read because I was like, okay, this is too good to be true. And when I read it, she literally said she purchased that back in 2009, and that's when the card deck um, was published. It apparently was very rare. He did not create a lot of those cards. I don't think he creates a lot of any of his decks of cards, to be honest. But she purchased them, and she looked at them one time, and then she said it wasn't for her, and then she stuck it in her storage. And apparently she was going through her storage and she found it, and it was time to get rid of it. So lucky me that because I went with the flow and I trusted that this kept coming to my mind, I actually got the deck for $100. Now I could easily resell that and double my profit, which I will not because I really want this deck, because then I started researching this 2 nights ago. And then I had no clue he based it off one of my famous movies called Dracula by Brian. I think Stokely, something like that is his last name. But it's one of my favorite movies. So I found 2 videos where they were showing you each one of these card decks. And I was like, oh, and this is before I found the lady on eBay that was selling it for $100. So I was like, oh my God, I really want this now. So I went with the flow, and it's supposed to arrive today, anytime before the end of the day. So it'll probably be coming here within the next 30, 40 minutes. And I'm super excited. But I wanted to post this video with what happens when you go with the flow. And I've had this happen so many times where, especially like when I get this very like feeling that I have to go to Half Price Books, there's something there. I normally find one of the rarest decks there because someone's telling me to go there, and I do it. I go there, and there it is. So going with the flow, it always is rewarding at the end. And it's normally something you truly want or something you truly desire that you've been wanting for a while, or if it's been coming to your mind for a while. So I wanted just to talk about going with the flow on a video and tell you my little experience that just happened the other day with it, and how sometimes going with the flow, it's not something that happens like within a day. With this whole vampire deck, this has actually been happening for many years, that would pop in my mind and then just go away and then come back, go away. So it's not always so quick as, something comes up, something is on your mind, and then you do whatever you want to do within a day or two. Sometimes it is. Sometimes, like I said, when I get that urge to go Half Price Books, I normally follow it because it just keeps coming to my mind to go there. And then I always find something really interesting. And like I said, normally it's rare decks from different countries. Last time I went to Half Price Books, when I got that feeling of like I really need to go there, is when I found the Priestess Moon Oracle from Australia, and she only created 100 of those, so that's pretty neat. Also, another thing with going with the flow, I'm sure everybody can relate of having that, oh, wish I should have listened to myself, but didn't. And then it didn't end up that way. Yeah, let's say you wanted to buy something and you're like, no, wait till I get more money or something like that. Excuse me, I gotta get a drink of water. So then um, you didn't buy it, and then once you're like, okay, I really need to buy it because it's on my mind, you went there and it's not there. That happens, I'm sure, to everybody. Like, oh, I missed it. But just know that if it's meant to be yours, that it will find its way to you one way or another. So I would suggest, when you're getting those urges or when something keeps coming to your mind, I would listen to it and follow it out. There are so many times that I will be driving and GPS tells me to go away, even though I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, but I'm gonna follow it out, and then it always kind of seems to lead me exactly to something that I never knew was there, even if it's just to admire a view. So, my advice to you is go with the flow. Listen to that inner voice because it's always for your highest good and you have no clue where it will lead you. Another thing is that if I've never talked about metaphysics or tarot card readings or cleansing of houses, I would never had the opportunity to meet the people that I met and to do the work that I've done so far. And it brings a lot of joy going into a house where people are just very dense energy and just needs this to stop, basically. That is rewarding to itself, that someone's trusting me, that I can go into their house and get things to go back to being somewhat their normal. Um, Also, I went with the flow. One thing that I've been wanting for years is, it's called the S box, where it picks up the sounds of basically spirits. And I always said it was too much money. I talked to my mom about this many years ago, and I was like, it's too much money. It's too much money. And then it came about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks ago. It just came to my mind like I really needed to get that. And so I started researching because I'm like, I don't even know where to get those, to be honest. Of course, Amazon, everything's on Amazon. But actually, it's called Ghost Shop, is where I ended up. And they had a package, a combo package that had the S box, a flashlight, and even the EMP, I think is what it's called, where it picks up different temperatures in a room, um, and a watch that goes with it. And they had it like $100 off. So the price for a S box alone was almost half of what they're wanting this combo pack. So I felt like, well, then, it's pretty much time for me to purchase this. So I did, and it did. It came in the mail, and I haven't used it yet. I just got it all out, charged it all, but I have a feeling that that thing's going to come into play down the road. But anyway, so I wanted to do this video about going with the flow and just letting you know that it's okay if you don't listen, and if you don't go with the flow, it's perfectly fine. Like I said, I've done that so many times where I didn't listen to myself. I would just say, don't beat yourself up with it. There's no need. Um, yeah, because like I said, if it's meant to be yours, it will come back. So I just wanted to share my story of how things can come to you in the perfect timing with the perfect price and everything when it's truly something you clearly desire. So I desired this deck, and it clearly worked out that I wasn't willing to budge on the money. And I'm not saying that you don't budge on the money either. I'm just saying go with what feels right. And to me, none of those prices felt right. So, and I've always seemed to get stuff on sale or clearance. It's weird, but it's kind of how my energy works, and it's what I put out in the universe without me realizing it. Is that I want this, but I also want it at a price that feels comfortable for me. So it's worked out so many times to the point where I don't even stop to think about it. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm like, well, what do you know? I want that, so I go to get it, and it's like 20% off or something like that. So, anyways, like I said, just wanted to do this short video of just kind of talking about experience with me going with the flow, me being excited about what's coming. And also, I wanted to show kind of this shirt here. It's called it has mustard seed. But this shirt is created by a young gentleman. Brandon is his name, and he does one of a kind with tie dye. I don't know if you can see all this cool tie dye and imaging. So I wanted to support him and wear his shirt that I purchased. And if you're interested in knowing about his clothing or anything like that, just reach out, and then I will give you his webpage. Totally forgot what it was called. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And like I said, if you take anything out of this video, is go with the flow and just be impressed and just be enjoying happiness, just going with it, not frustration of why am I doing this? How did I end here? Like, just it will present itself, and you're always smile like, huh, I would have never thought. All right. You guys have a good night. Bye.